You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk.
Number 360.
Hello and welcome back to the Outdoor Station with me, your host, Bob Cartwright. And, well, it's been a while since I've done some podcasts, and I think I owe you an explanation. So, in this podcast, we're going to discuss weather, we're going to discuss excuses, and various bits of reading matter to entertain us during this miserable weather, plus a little liberal sprinkling of nuggets of information. Well, after I finish my excuses and things, which I'll come on to in a moment, Andy Howell reviews three books which may help us through some of these rather cold, miserable nights. And I know us Brits do go on about the weather a bit, and we've got a pretty good excuse for doing so, because it's bloody awful. It is cold, it is miserable, and it's spring. We have Easter coming this weekend. And traditionally, Easter is a time for getting out for those first bit of camping and walking. The grass is green, the birds are singing, the daffodils are out, the snowdrops are out, and everyone is starting to feel the new year emerge from the undergrowth. Sadly, it's still under 2 or 3 inches of snow, and as much as snow is good fun to go and play with over the Christmas period, after a while it just gets you really, really annoyed. So that's the weather topic. Anyway, Andy is reviewing 3 books: The Isolation Shepherd by Ian Thompson, Wild Coast by Jim Gimlet, and Scotland World Mountain Series by Chris Townsend, a well-known name, of course. Anyway, I said I'd start this off by doing some explanations, some excuses. And I feel I owe you some excuses because there are sort of go through stages of fits and starts of producing lots of podcasts, doing lots of interviews, and then appearing to do not very much at all. Well, as a lot of people will know, we also operate the website backpackinglight.co.uk. And for those regular visitors to us, will notice that at the end of February, we flipped over from the old site to the new website. And if anybody has experience of that type of activity, you'll know just how pressurized it is to make sure that everything still works, all the links work, and obviously you've populated a new website, it's had to be built. The long and the short of it is we started back in October of last year, and finally produced the new website, which, actual fact, we're very, very pleased with, very proud of, and very, very pleased with the results. It's gone much smoother than I thought it might do, and it looks really, really good. But on top of that, it gives us a lot more sort of features that you might expect really from a sort of commercial website. I would dare to say almost Amazonian in type, that you can do all sorts of things like leave reviews of products and do wish lists, and there's all sorts of other features as well, such as loyalty points. And in fact, if you're interested in getting a new rucksack, just a bit of a commercial plug, because obviously the commercial side of Backpacking Light does help fund the Outdoor Station. So it's my toy. I'm going to play with it. This weekend in Easter 2013, we're doing a double points scheme. So if you buy any rucksack or rucksack accessory from Backpacking Light, you get double points, and those points are worth a sizable discount on future purchases once it meets a threshold. But basically it equates to about between 4 and 8% discount on future products. Anyway, so that's the financial plug over. If you've purchased something from Backpacking Light in the past, your login and password is still the same, and you also have 200 points already placed in the bank. So if you want to top that up so that you can use it in the future, then now is the time to do so. And what else are we doing? Well, going back to the Outdoor Station, if you have been onto the Outdoor Station website recently, or picked up on the YouTube channel that we have, you will have noticed that we've done a new series of videos, which obviously takes a bit of time, but it's also quite useful to do to share a bit more information about products which are available. And we've done 5 videos with some of the new Montane packs. We did a video on the new Lightning, the Exped Lightning packs, which I think are going to be very popular. And they're literally about to arrive. And we've also done a video on the Sill Rocket as well, a sort of a tarp tent which opens out into a gull-wing tarp, which is quite a neat design, actually. And anyway, those videos are really taken off. We're getting a lot of people looking at those. And the reason I mention that is in the video, you'll see that I have started to invest in the technology to do virtual studios. Now, people that are into media stuff will know immediately what a virtual studio is, but basically it's a green screen studio. So you place yourself in a green screen situation and you set up the lights and the cameras and off you go, and it gives the impression that you're standing in something like one of these BBC virtual studios with it all singing or dancing. And I must admit, it's a hell of a good toy. It really is bloody marvellous. The box that does it all arrived the other day, and while I record this podcast, I haven't actually produced any of the new studio, if you like, video studio podcasts. But when I do, you're gonna love it. It really is very slick. But of course, the most important thing is not the technology and the pretty pictures that it's able to deliver, but actually content. And I would really, really appreciate people taking the time, if you would, to drop us a line either on Facebook or directly to our email address, which will appear in a second, our email address, and let us know what sort of things you'd like to see or know about, perhaps more using the video as a delivery system. Now, as I sort of said earlier on, you know, we are on a budget and we try and fund the Outdoor Station activities from Backpacking Light. Plus, of course, you can actually be an executive producer if you ever wanted to be one and have your name up in lights for the videos or for the audio by making a PayPal donation. And that information is over on theoutdoorstation.co.uk as well. And we'd be glad to take your money and give you the share of the thrill of being there, but that would be great. So yes, as I say, we're on a fairly tight budget, and we do try and sort of incorporate some of our commercial activities in with the access to video. So we do have obviously various reps that call in, and we can look at some of the equipment that they have with them and discuss that in more detail. So let us know if that interests you. Not necessarily things that we sell, you know, things that other people, that some of the businesses that we deal with actually have access to. And if you'd like to know more information about that, let us know about that. We were thinking of perhaps taking a few days out and going up to sort of Derbyshire or the Lake District, which is where the majority of the main distributors are for some of the brands. And perhaps you would like us to call in and have a word with them. People like OMM, Our consultants distribute OMM products. They've got a unit somewhere in the north there. We have Mountain King poles. We have Rab and Montane, and the list is endless. But we only have a certain amount of time to gather this stuff. But I really would appreciate if people could take the time to drop us an email with any sort of video suggestions that you might have that are realistic. Be realistic, whether it's chatting to people about certain pieces of equipment, chatting to people that have used it on various trips, or just generally finding out more about how to. Any of these, how to pitch a tent, how to string up a hammock, seam seal, I don't know, that type of thing. Because the how-to videos that I've done on the Outdoor Station about how to make your own pot cozy and the effect it has, and make your own windshield and a few other bits and bobs which are purely just informational, not sort of non-commercial, have proved to be very, very popular, and we have a whole new swathe of people coming through which have all got into pot cozies and the principle, and appreciating just how much A, it saves fuel, and B, how much more environmentally friendly it is as a way of cooking.
If you have any feedback, questions or suggestions, why not drop us a line, either on Facebook or directly to our email address, info@theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
Bringing you more about the outdoors world.
What else has been going on? Well, we've if you're, again, a regular customer, you will have tapped into our blog feed or our Twitter feed. We've got 2 Twitter feeds. We've got one for the Outdoors Station, which is Outdoors ST, and one for Backpacking Light, which is BPL_UK. And that is growing rapidly as well. And you'll know that our daughter Beth has joined us for a while we make some of our changes and do some reconfigurations. And she is really, really helping out. An extra pair of hands makes a massive difference, both practically from packing stuff and office activity to also doing some of the media work as well. And her expertise is in social networking and using the social network to spread the word. So things are changing and happening in that way as well. So that was a bit of a long introduction, wasn't it? I think it's about time we had a bit of a break, and Andy came in with some of his book reviews to give you some entertainment and something to think about to while away these cold nights.
You're listening to theoutdoorstation.co.uk, award-winning producers of podcasts to inform, inspire, entertain, and encourage people to enjoy a healthy outdoors lifestyle.
I'm going to be taking a look at 3 titles that have made a big impression on me over the last 12 months. The first is an old classic that should be far better known than it is. The second is from a new travel writer who's produced a stunning account of his journey in Central America. And finally, I'm going to have a look at what for me was the best outdoor guide of 2011. My first book is Isolation Shepherd by Ian R. Thompson. It's a book that I've been wanting to read for a while, but I only managed to get hold of it once it was published on the Amazon Kindle. Isolation Shepherd is the story of 4 years that Thompson spent living as a shepherd in Strathfara in the Scottish Highlands. Thompson was there at the end of the 50s, living with his young family on an isolated estate on the banks of Loch Monar. Their only neighbours were to the south on the opposite side of the water at Pate Lodge. It's a fascinating story and in many ways a historical document, as the way of life described had been more or less unchanged since the beginning of the clearances. And while it isn't the best prose that I've read recently, the content is in the main fascinating. Thompson walks us through all aspects of life in the glen and on the loch. There are stories of the changing seasons, working with sheepdogs, the rearing and caring of the sheep themselves, life in the glen, and accounts of stalking deer, catching foxes, and so on. It was clearly a harsh and a hard life, but it was led within the rhythm of the seasons and the land. The only concessions to modernity here seem to have been the outdoor engines on the small boats that provided the crucial link to the main glen to the east. The continuity of life on the loch has an almost surreal effect at times. Thompson can be talking about an incident that happens when he's out rounding up sheep or hunting deer, and he'll then refer to another great story of the glen, which sounds almost contemporary, but which features incidents and characters from several generations before. However, the certainty of the seasons and the continuity of the tasks means that these reminiscences remain as relevant as if they'd only happened a year before. And while life was hard, there's a lot of joy here as we get to know the tiny community that live around the loch. As a result, we get a fascinating account of life at the end of a period of great tradition, and a wonderful pen picture of historic life in a very isolated part of the Highlands. Although, of course, like elsewhere in Scotland, these areas were much more heavily populated than we can imagine before the coming of the sheep. Sometimes the book feels disjointed, and sometimes the author lost me, but inevitably I found I was dragged back with the fascinating start of a new section. It is a book that will appeal to anyone who loves the Highlands, and especially to those who have ever walked the paths and hills of this area. Thompson was here until the end. The construction of the dams at the east end of the loch and the creation of the modern-day reservoir spelt the end of this way of life. The neighbours over the water at Pate left first, and Thompson and his family left just after the dam was completed. The dam raised the level of the loch by 100 metres or so. The small croft that was home was demolished before being flooded, a fate shared by many of the other places referenced in the book, although Pate Lodge remains, though now much closer to the waterline. There's much to admire in this timeless account of a more genuine and innocent time, and I guess this is a book that will be in print for a long time, and it's well recommended. My second book is The Wild Coast by John Gimlett, a new name to me and one that I only discovered through Amazon's recommendation system. But The Wild Coast is a truly fantastic piece of modern travel literature. It's the story of Gimlett's travels in Guinea, the land of many waters, as named by the local Amerindians. Guinea has 900 miles of muddy coastline and no natural ports, and 80% of the land is covered by rainforest. According to Gimlett, nowhere in South America is quite like it. Today, Guinea, as a result of colonialism, is 3 different but connected territories: the ex-British colony of Guyana, the ex-Dutch colony of Suriname, and French Guinea, which is still part of France, and which has members sitting in the French National Assembly. Gimlett travels around each of the territories, exploring their fading capitals and journeying to the marginal towns and cities on the edge of forests. He takes trips into the jungle and revisits a whole series of past projects aimed at levering largely mythical riches. As an explorer and a writer, Gimlett serves us well. His historical briefing is fascinating without getting in the way of a thoroughly gripping yarn, and the people he meets along the way, who provide the hospitality and look after him on his travels, are affectionately remembered. Guinea may be a backwater, but as an explorer, Gimlett was following in the footsteps of a number of illustrious predecessors, including Walter Raleigh, Evelyn Waugh and V.S. Naipaul, and we learn much about their travels and their lives through these pages. The towns here seem to be almost like any you come across in South America, except more marginal. The forest at times has an almost heart of darkness feel to it, and you might not be surprised that this marginalised country throws up all kinds of fascinating stories. There are a series of modern dictators, the cult of Jim Jones and the Jonestown Massacre, and the true story perhaps of Henri Charrière, or Papillon, of Devil's Island, and who seems to have been a model prisoner. El Dorado is here, yes it really is, and there are lots of little pen pictures of people who've become household names back in Europe, including politicians Bernie Grant and Trevor Phillips, musician Eddie Grant, and football superstar Ruud Gullit. Above all else, this is a story of settlement and revolution, of tribal wars fomented by Western powers who dashed the hopes and the dreams of the indigenous people. Each of the 3 territories is of course very similar, but we do get a fascinating feel here of how each of the 3 powers, the British, the Dutch and the French, have created a new framework for the land that they've largely left behind. There seems to be little hope here for dramatic growth or an economic miracle, and the future of these nations looks to be dependent on foreign aid. As a result, I guess many of us will have few opportunities or even fewer reasons to visit here. Yet Gimlett's book is enlightening in all kinds of ways. The best kind of travel books are a wonderful mixture of travelogue, historical account, mythical tales and fascinating encounters, and you'll find all of these in The Wild Coast. Gimlett proves that there's life yet in the travel genre, and The Wild Coast is a very, very good read. My third and final book is Chris Townsend's Scotland, which is one of the new and growing series of World Mountain Range guides from Cicerone. These are not books that are designed to be taken with you on the hills, rather they're works of reference to be used at home in planning that walking holiday, that long trek, or Munro bagging expedition. This book is over 550 pages long, and I can tell you that there's no waffle here and there's no padding. It's just all beautifully laid out, hard information. I've got the book in front of me, so let's just take a look at it. First up is an introduction, which is a lovingly written essay from Chris Townsend, explaining just why these hills are so important to him and to other hill walkers. There's a section on practicalities, when to go, weather, getting there, getting around, accommodation, maps and guidebooks, equipment and so on. Then there's a really interesting chunk of information about the mountains themselves. We can learn about the topography and the geology of the mountains. There's an essay on the history, culture and the rise of mountaineering here. There's a glossary of Scottish mountain names and sections on responsible mountaineering, environmental ethics and more besides. And then we get to the heart of the book, which is based around 7 chapters, each of which features a different region of the Highlands and indeed includes the southern uplands and the islands themselves. And each of these chapters really could be a guidebook in its own right. It's so comprehensive. So let's take a look at one. So I'm going to look at the Central Highlands. And the first thing that I notice is a very useful feature at the front of this chapter that's replicated at the front of each chapter. And it's a chapter summary, and it gives me just the highlights here that I can expect in the Central Highlands. So there are details of low-level passes and walks, long-distance walks. So we've got 2 here, the West Highland Way and a walk from Fort William to Dalwhinnie via Coor, which would be a great 3 or 4 day walk. There are details of summit walks, both Munros, Corbetts and ridge walks. There are details of scrambles, rock climbs and also opportunities for winter climbing and ski touring. And these highlights illustrate the philosophy of Cicerone with his books, which is to allow any outdoor enthusiast, whether they're a walker, mountaineer, ski tourer and so on, to appreciate the very best that each region has to offer. Then we get into a very detailed contents section, and this is broken up into 18 chunks of information, each one that focuses around a particular glen or a particular range of hills. And indeed there's also here a particular section on the West Highland Way itself. So we'll go and have a look at one of these, and what we find is a kind of gazetta of information on that range of hills or that glen. So very quickly we can see just how isolated it is, how you would approach it. We can understand how many route options there are up to that particular Munro. Is it a straightforward climb or is it indeed a scramble? And if you don't like scrambling, are there other alternatives you can take? Then it will tell us just what life is like at the top of the hill. Is it a grass plateau, for example, or is it a very rocky, almost lunar landscape? There's just enough information here for you to decide, yep, this is something I want to include on my itinerary, or, well, maybe it looks interesting, but I really need to go out and find something else out about this area. At the end of every chapter, there's a section that gives you details of how to access the region, some suggestions as places that would be good bases for exploration, and a listing of maps and guidebooks for further study. Now, I've been using this book for over 12 months now, and I have to say I think it's a great achievement. It is the obvious starting point now for anybody looking to plan a long trek, a Munro bagging trip, or indeed a conventional summer's walking holiday. It's a wonderful achievement. I can't speak highly enough of this book. I know that Chris absolutely worked his socks off to produce this guide, and on many occasions feared that he would never finish it, but fortunately for us he did, and it's a magnificent achievement. It's also beautifully designed and laid out. It features a whole series of stunning photographs, some wonderful highlight boxes, and some very crisp and clear maps of the kind of quality that you'd expect from Cicerone. And I've said before that the Cicerone design team deserve to win prizes for the layout of this book, if indeed they haven't done so already. So that's Scotland by Chris Townsend. Well recommended. So there you have it, 3 very different titles, each one of which is a fascinating read in its own right. Our first book was Isolation Shepherd by Ian R. Thompson, and costs for the paperback start at around about £9 online, and the Kindle edition is available for around about £4.50. I think this is also available in other ebook formats. Our second book was John Gimlet's Wild Coast, Travels on South America's Untamed Edge. Paperback costs start at around about £9 to £10, and the Kindle edition will cost £8.41. And again, I think that's available in other e-formats. Our final book was Chris Townsend's Scotland, one of Cicerone's World Mountain Range series. This can be bought direct from Cicerone at www.cicerone.co.uk, and the paperback version will set you back £25, but you can find this cheaper online at around about £19 to £20. There's a Kindle edition, priced at £15.75, and through the website you'll be able to buy other ebook formats for your desktop computer. That will also cost you £25, and for the iPad and iPhone, and that also will cost you £25.
You're listening to the award-winning UK Business Podcaster of the Year.
The home of UK-based audio and video podcasts for lovers of the great outdoors everywhere.
Podcasts are based solely around self-powered travel.
This is the Outdoor Station.
My thanks to Andy for taking the time to review those books. That will help pass some of these cold, wet, miserable nights. Andy is a very well-known blogger, so do check him out. If you Google Andy Howell or Must Be This Way, you'll find his blog, and you will certainly have plenty of reading on there, going back years, all reflecting on his experiences outdoors and a whole variety of other interests. Now, talking of outdoors, Rose and I headed, well, it was only last weekend, so it's Easter this weekend, so you can see what time of year it was. Headed up to Brecon because we'd had a few days of really good weather, and we thought we might go out and test some gear and just stretch our legs, really, the first decent walk of the year. So we've written up and published a few pictures from that on our blog, which is actually over on Backpacking Light once again, backpackinglight.co.uk. And there's an RSS feed on that blog post as well. So should you wish to sort of keep up to date with some of the things we've been doing, then that'll be one of the many places to do that. In fact, Rose is wanting to do a dry run on some equipment, some of the new equipment we've got coming in literally at the moment, because she's heading up to the West Highland Way in a couple of weeks' time, and she's naturally a bit concerned what sort of weather she might be facing. Theoretically, it should be springtime and glorious, but we've got one eye on the weather forecast continually, and she's a little bit hesitant about the snowfall that she might be facing. And I, of course, are heading out on the TGO Challenge this year. So I'm joining Lee and Tony, my fellow two musketeers, and we're going to be heading across Scotland again. It's Lee's 10th crossing. And so it's a boys' 2 weeks, and Rose was banned, so she took the humph, and she's heading up to the West Highland Way. But once again, just keeping an eye on the weather, wondering what the heck it's going to be delivering for everybody on the TGO Challenge, which is something that we've always supported where we can, because it's a great way of supporting and promoting good fellowship amongst backpackers. Now, talking about good fellowship, if you're feeling a little bit down at the moment and you want a bit of a lift, I have to say that one of the most recent Scotland outdoor podcasts that I heard was just awe-inspiring. It's the one that's been published on the 13th of March. So if you, again, Google it or hunt around for the BBC Scotland Outdoors podcasts. And the last section of the 3 interviews is with a character called George Berwick. Now, the BBC were contacted by one of our interviewees, actually, Warren Sanders, who's the guy that I interviewed, I suppose a couple of months back now, who's cycling around the world. And he suggested to them that they should interview George Berwick, who is 72, and he's covered 750,000 miles on a push bike. He's based up in Fife, and if you want to listen to somebody who knows how to live life, and you can hear it in his voice, and give you a lift if you're feeling miserable, then spend 5 minutes, hunt this guy out and listen to it. It's an absolute scream. And I just hope that when I get to that age, I've got the same enthusiasm and the same humour for life as well. Fantastic. And the other podcast I'd thoroughly recommend is, of course, Sinead over on The Calendar Road, the Irish podcast. If you go in, Google The Calendar Road or podcast.ie, she does a monthly sort of 20-minute, half-hour podcast describing the change in the weather and the seasons. And she's got the greatest voice in the world, especially if you just want to sit back and chill out and close your eyes and imagine this beautiful country path that she treads and explains so eloquently. So that's well worth listening to. Right, I think I have covered most things now. So I do hope you've enjoyed this half-hour break. That's had plenty of information there for you. As I say, do let us know, please. Seriously, let us know what you'd like to see, if at all possible, on the video casts that we want to spend more time doing. It would be great if they were informational techniques or something that's practical and easy for me to either explain or get hold of a local expert to explain for you. And I'd be very, very interested to know where people's interests lie. Do you want sort of more information about products and technical stuff, or do you want actual sort of techniques or characters? So please, if you could spend just a couple of minutes to drop me an email to info@theoutdoorsStation.co.uk. That would be fantastic. So, we're heading into Easter. I hope the time you spend with your family is a good one, and that the weather cheers up at some stage and we can all get out and enjoy some spring sunshine. Until then, bye for now.
If you have any feedback, questions or suggestions, why not drop us a line directly to our email address, info@theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
Call us now and leave a voice message. You can Skype or call us at local rates at any time from any phone on 0208 133 9434.
This independent programme is produced and hosted by theoutdoorsStation.co.uk.